We have present for the Scribner Library Trustees, Amanda Loud, who is the chair. We have Susan McLeod present, Walter Durack, who is present, and we have as guests or public present, we have Alice Staples, Kathleen DeWolf, Sarah Weinberg, and Galaxy 50, I think. We're not sure who that person is.
Yep, it's Lisa. I can see her.
Oh, Lisa.
Yeah,
Lisa. And Lisa Rollins, who is now present and is also the secretary of the Scribners. Awesome. So now we have a quorum, I do declare, and we will begin our meeting. Up first on the agenda is the secretary's report and the approval of the 5/11 and 5/25 minutes. It has come to my attention that the minutes of 5/25, thank you very much, Lisa, were only sent to Patsy and not also sent to Mardine. So I will forward those on to Mardine and be sure that they are posted on the website. There has been, Walter said, a separate tab now established so that we can see the minutes both of the trustees of the trust funds as well as the minutes of the Scribner trustees. Does anyone have any revisions for the minutes of 5/11 or 5/25?
I think my only comment for the ones for 5/25, let's get me up on the screen here, was that on the first statement, the current state of the Scribner funds held in Wells Fargo, she said is 90,000. I think just maybe is about or approximately, because she didn't have an exact number and it might be more or less. So
yeah, that sounds
reasonable. Don't make it as a definitive statement.
Yeah.
It was the only thing I could find.
We have since had someone join our meeting by phone. Can I ask you please to identify yourself? 1-423-883-4074. You're muted and we cannot hear who you are. Well, let it enter the minutes that we had an unknown dial-in present at our public meeting. Yeah, very good. I think that that's right, that should be an approximate value on the trust at that time, because it is a dynamic amount, you know, and it does change. That's how much it was at that time, was about 90,000. Any other revisions to the minutes of 5/11 or 5/25?
No. I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of May 11th as presented and the minutes of May 25th as amended.
Do I hear a second? I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have to do my roll call. I have to do my roll call. Susan McLeod.
Aye for both.
Walter Durack.
I will abstain because these predate my appointment.
Okay. Lisa Rollins.
Lisa's got to unmute.
Lisa, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Unmute. There we go.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Okay.
Who all is here? I got Amanda, Susan, Walter, Alice,
Sarah.
Kathleen.
Sarah.
Yeah, and then would the caller who is called in please identify himself or herself?
You have Kathleen.
Well, I have 1-423-883-4074. I have someone dialed in with that phone number who is muted and is not identifying himself or herself. Okay, and Amanda Loud says aye to the accepting of the minutes. So we have accepted both minutes. One is amended and one as stated. So we are set. Now I'm going to find the agenda. There we go. Next up is I believe a treasurer's report. We do not have at this time, we do not have a treasurer. At this time, however, we have no signatory authority to be spending any money or doing anything. So I I think we're doing okay as far as no treasurer. There's nothing for us to do anyway. The paperwork is, in my knowledge, I did send an email to Charlie again today asking him if he needed anything, forwarding minutes both from the trustee of the trust fund as well as Scribner minutes he has to prove that we all exist and who we are. And then the Board of Selectmen minutes prove that, you know, who was appointed and everything. So I'm hoping that given another week or so, I might be able to pay a phone bill at the library. I've also received bills. I've got my Scribner pile here. I've also received a P.O. box bill, which is now $92 a year. We have a P.O. box. It's my personal recommendation that we continue with keeping the P.O. box, because we do, as Scribners and trustees of the trust fund, get a great deal of mail, particularly statements. And it's nice to know where it is and that no one else is sorting it or making an accidental putting it in the wrong mail slot, you know, at the town. So I would like us to keep it myself. I can't pay it right now anyway. Do I therefore make a motion that we keep our mailbox, which is $92 a year. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
So all in favor, Susan McLeod,
Aye.
Walter Durack,
Aye.
Lisa Rollins,
Aye.
and Amanda Loud also votes aye. So that is carried. So we will, once I can, you know, one of us can pay the bill, we will keep that. We also received a bill from Mason Enterprise for mowing the lawn for $90. This was not an unexpected bill. Mason has been providing the services on lawn care for many years. I don't have the ability to pay this bill right now, but I do propose that we pay this bill. I also propose that we begin talking with the town, as we discussed at an earlier meeting, about having the town maybe begin doing the mowing at the Scribner building. It does mow, the town does mow the Memorial Park. So it seems that, you know, they're kind of in the vicinity as it is. And it is a small lawn, I think, you know, compared to the park. So I guess I'm putting out, you know, a motion that, you know, not only do we pay the Mason bill, which of course, you know, for services already rendered, but that, you know, soon, and I don't know how soon that would be when we have our ducks in order, more, you know, within the next week or two, probably 3 weeks, go before the Board of Selectmen and begin talking to the board about taking on the mowing of the Scribner building. Do I have a second to that motion, that the town begin, you know, that we go before the town to ask them to take on the maintenance, exterior lawn maintenance of the building?
I guess
since
because I think Lisa's going to probably recuse on this one. I will make that motion. Or
Okay.
second.
Second, yeah. So is there any discussion on this? I think we can add some discussion on the lawn maintenance probably when we come to the tree maintenance as well, which we're going to discuss on our agenda here in a moment. I see that the 423 is a Tennessee area code. The person who has called in has not identified himself or herself yet, but is a Tennessee. This is a public meeting, so I don't see a reason. Is anyone concerned about continuing this meeting with not knowing who this dial-in is? We are at a public meeting. Okay, well, being no
it would be nice to know who they are, but
it is a public meeting, so.
okay.
I mean, if anyone is very uncomfortable, I suppose we could end the meeting and begin again. But it is a public meeting, so anyone can come.
I'm all set with it.
Okay.
And as host, you have control that if for whatever reason we get bombed by somebody, which has happened in the past, you you have the control of muting anybody who
Oh, yeah,
is
exactly.
out of order.
Yeah.
So that
I
hasn't happened yet. So there aren't any concerns.
I just muted Tennessee, so Tennessee's going to have to make some reason to talk. Well, I guess I should unmute. That seems a little unrealistic right now. Okay.
So we're in discussion as to the motion. So if there's
The motion is to go before the Board of Selectmen, the Ashland Board of Selectmen, and to ask them if they are willing to begin to take on the exterior maintenance of the Scribner building. I don't know when we would be asking this, perhaps in another 3 weeks. I know that the BOS meets next a week from tonight. I think that might be a little soon, or maybe not. We'll have to see how our meeting goes, especially in discussing the tree situation. But I would just like to have the board vote on whether or not we are going to begin to move that particular expense that the trust currently incurs to the town.
Well, again, I think you should clarify, you say grounds instead of the exterior of the building. Those are
That's
two
true,
separate
grounds.
things.
That's-
It is
yeah.
grounds.
Grounds. Mhm.
Because like I said before, they already do the winter maintenance for the most part. For the most part, they do the winter maintenance.
Yeah, this would be adding the mowing.
Yeah.
Do I have a second? So I had a second to my motion. So if there any more discussion? So we will go on a roll call then. Susan McLeod,
Aye.
Walter Durack,
Aye.
Lisa Rollins.
I will recuse myself from the vote based on the fact that I am the significant other of Ray Mason.
Okay, and Amanda Loud says aye. So we have put that now as something that we Scribners will go before the Board of Selectmen as we begin to define what our expenses can and cannot be, should and should not be in relation to the balance of the trust. Speaking of which,
Can we just briefly go back to the post office box?
yes, of course.
Do you have a deadline? Because if you do not pay by the deadline, you actually can lose the number.
Yeah.
We went through this with another organization I deal with. Somebody on the board had to purchase that number and then give it up so that the organization could pick it up again for continuity.
Yeah.
So if you lose it, then you have to change everything that has a reference to the post office box. So you got to pay it on time.
The due date is June 30th. And so right now I feel like by June 30th, in another 3 weeks, I should be able to have, one of us should be able to have signatory authority to write. There is a checkbook for Scribners. It has been historically paid. It's the Scribner Library Trustees is who is on the bill, although all mail comes to it, both stuff pertaining to the Scribner Trust as well as Blake and Memorial Park. And then I said there's 7 minor trusts as well. They all come in. I hope, I foresee being able to pay this, but thank you for your, for that information, Susan. I would say that if push came to shove and things were really bad and it was, June 28th or 29th, I just go in with my credit card and pay the thing. Because you're right, we need to preserve that PO box number. It just causes such a headache, and we have plenty of headaches without needing that one. Good point. Okay, going on, the status of the Wells Fargo account. It is up to about, and I always end up, thank you for visiting. I get booted out because I bring it up before the meeting. And I did want to have it on because I wanted to ask Walter to say a few words. We began to discuss this Friday night before he had another call. So we were doing a meeting while he was on duty, and that was interesting. But we got done what we really needed to get done, which was have our meeting and prove that we had trustees, a trustee quorum, et cetera, and be able to start that. So I've shared the screen now with Wells Fargo advisors. And what you see here are the 3 accounts. This at the top is Blake, and then in the middle is Scribner, and then below is Memorial Park. So the Scribner now has a value of about $97.5, which is good. It was at 96 at the end of December. It was at about 106, 107,000 before everything fell. So we're about 10,000 below where we were earlier this year. But things are going up. I've seen it down in the 80s this year, so this is good. Having said that, you know, believing that it will go back and be robust, I think is a specious argument, because we have lots of expenses, things that we're going to need to address that will be taking the bottom line down. But where we stand right now is approximately 97.5. Very good. Any questions while I have this up? So Walter, now that we talked a bit about the Blake and Memorial Park trusts on Friday night, but here we are at a Scribner trustee meeting. Can you please, I've talked a little bit about how it's invested, but can you tell the Scribner board what your feelings are about how it, my feelings about how it's invested is that it's, you know, we have very high fees going on with it and high expense ratios, and I think we could do better somewhere else. But Walter, you had some great insight into the other funds, and I was wondering if you could share that with the rest of the board.
Sure. So I looked at this fund as well as the funds for the Memorial Park and the Blake Memorial. And what I found corroborated what Amanda explained at the meeting on May 11th, that, yeah, the mutual funds, the trust fund are invested in do carry expense ratios, and those expense ratios cover the costs of management and et cetera. That expense ratio is expressed as a percentage of the value of the investment. And those expense ratios are higher on average than what's kind of considered the industry norm. You can go anywhere from 0 up to 2%. Typically below 0.5% is where I consider value on down. Some of these, I believe, were in excess of 1%, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
On top
Some
of those,
close to 2. Some are close
yes,
to 2%. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's correct. And that's just absolutely exorbitant for the type of fund as well as its performance. If you're paying a 2% expense ratio, you should be invested in a mutual fund that is, just outperforms everything on the face of the planet and then some. The accounts themselves with Wells Fargo, we are charged between 0.8 and 1% of the value annually, and it is withdrawn on a quarterly basis for advisory fees.
And those are in addition, excuse me, those are in addition to these expense ratios. This is a
that's
second
correct.
level of expense fees being charged.
Right. That comes out of the cash that we have, or that the funds have on hand. And those advisory fees, for lack of a better term, are a membership fee for the privilege of having our money parked at Wells Fargo's investment house. Ordinarily, when you are paying advisory fees to a financial advisor, that financial advisor is or should be your partner in investing and saying, yes, you're trying to grow, based on your investment strategy, you're looking to have money in 30 years, you're saving 5% a year, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to help you meet those goals by investing in funds, equities, other instruments that help you meet those goals. And then that advisor gives you, suggestions on, you might want to try this or that, or now's a good time to take money out for an expense, or now's not a good time to take money out for expense. So looking at what we're paying for those advisory fees, I did a little bit of looking into the history of the transactions that have taken place across this fund as well as the other two funds over the last 6 months. I just grabbed the last 6 months, drilled down, looked on a line-by-line basis, and found that by and large, the only activity was automatic activity. And what I mean by that is mutual funds, stocks, they are set, and it's really an investor preference, to automatically reinvest dividends that are paid. And that's something that you can turn on or off. If you want the dividends paid out as cash, you can say, nope, I don't want to buy any more shares of that company. I'm just going to keep that in cash and use that. Or you might say, no, I want to reinvest that. And you start out with 25 shares of XYZ Corporation, and you get a quarter share with that dividend, you reinvest it. That's how that works. You can do it the same with mutual funds. As far as active activity happening, I could see a couple places where some checks were cut. I could see a couple places where they sold some shares of stock or some shares in a mutual fund to pay an expense. But I didn't see any financial transactions happening on a level that would benefit the beneficiaries of the trust because, there was a downturn coming in the market or anything like that, or they saw an opportunity to pick up on something that was maybe undervalued that could benefit the trustees or benefit the beneficiaries by investing in. So what I'm getting at, and I apologize for being a little long-winded, is that I don't really think that the beneficiaries of the Scribner Trust, as well as the other two trusts, which just for a point of reference here, I don't think that you are getting your money's worth for the advisory fees that are being charged for the privilege of being with Wells Fargo.
So, Walter, as we look at the Scribner Trust and we're going to review, Susan did an excellent job prioritizing. We have, some needed expenses, and we also have, I had Chief Heath went through the building today and did a life safety inspection, which I also sent to all of you. And so we have some things that need to be addressed. And we have about 97.5 in it, and it's in a trust with someone that we're just not very happy with the performance and the fees. So what do you suggest?
I would suggest that, and I'll keep it specific to this fund. I would suggest that we reallocate those investments to another investment firm. There are.
Do you have any in mind?
What's that?
Do you have any in mind?
Yes. Vanguard by far has some of the best, what I would consider value funds on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And, very low expense ratios. They don't require that you have a financial advisor unless you specifically ask for it. I can't tell you here at Wells Fargo if they require a financial advisor or not, or, without having the full history.
Yeah, I believe they do.
Right. That I think if the Scribner trustees wanted to have a financial advisor for their investment,
Mm-hmm.
that it should be something that the Scribner trustees take a vote on, and
Okay.
that we all are in agreement on.
Yeah.
The trustees of the trust funds who are members of the Scribner trustees as ex officios, we have a fiduciary responsibility to be custodians of these different trust funds that are invested. And I don't believe that means that trustees of trust funds should be acting without input from the different beneficiaries.
Right. So, the Vanguard is the fund that I presented to the Scribners before you joined, Walter, and
Mhm.
I got Vanguard because I have a friend who is a financial advisor. And I called Carl, and he gave me, 5 minutes of his time, and I explained my situation, and he said, oh, well, you should just go with Vanguard. It's going to have the lowest expense ratios. You're going to have the best performance, et cetera, and I said, well, thank you very much. Bye. So, I would just wanted to make it, very public that on the one hand, I have no vested interest in Vanguard as a company. I don't work for it. I'm not going to make anything. If it goes with Vanguard, I have no benefit that way, but that this did not come just from my head. It actually came from a certified financial planner who
Right.
said, go with Vanguard, and Walter is also agreeing. We did look at some funds. I guess, when we were talking Friday, your words, Walter, were, you would like to see things move sooner rather than later for regarding the Blake Memorial. And I'm assuming that's true also of Scribner.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
So I'm going to put a motion just so we can begin discussion. And my motion is that we move the funds out of Wells Fargo, and we move them into a Vanguard fund. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and so now we can discuss this. As far as Vanguard goes, there are, and we looked at the website together back in, I guess it was May. It must have been our May 11th meeting. So much has happened since then. And there were many different funds we could look at, and I expressed a desire to be in a balanced fund. I know that just looking at the screen, for example, as I said, Memorial Park it's up now, but at one point it was down 12% at its worst. Whereas the Blake Fund, which is an unbalanced fund, it's all equity, it has no bonds, it was down as much as 22%. So being balanced does keep you from bouncing, too much, keeps it much more steady, or keeps it steadier. So at any rate, we looked at different funds, and the one that I myself am partial to is the Vanguard Admiral Fund. I don't know if we are in a position right now to make a decision into which fund it goes in. I also don't want to assume, that is this a decision that we feel maybe Walter could make by, Walter has a great deal of experience or understanding of this. How does everyone feel about this?
Yeah, I would certainly say that I am not, this is not my field of expertise or necessarily a whole degree of interest enough to really have informed myself fully on it.
Mm-hmm.
I have also talked to people who deal with investments, other boards of other organizations that get financial assistance in some way and advice. And I think Vanguard kept coming up in any conversation as to be the one that best suits, because our investment is tiny compared to a lot of others. I mean, even some of these nonprofit organizations that I've talked to have significant,
Mm-hmm.
much more money that they have invested and are dealing with all the time. And so the less you have, the more careful you have to be with it, obviously. And again, to be balanced, this was supposed to be something that you were trying to hold in perpetuity, and to be investing in it as if you're ready to play the market come high or low doesn't seem to be the strategy that is going to sustain. As we see, it doesn't look like it might be sustained for too much longer anyway.
Right.
So I would go with something that is more balanced and will cost us less to maintain it. And on a personal level, Wells Fargo has been in the news for being in trouble for exploiting all their clients and customers
For a
3
long time.
times now, at least 3 times in the last several years.
Their
And
stock rating was even hit. Their stock rating has been devalued, I think, twice in the past 5 years.
so that doesn't speak well for how much they care or don't care about us as a client.
Yes. Lisa, how do you feel about this?
Well, I don't have a lot of experience in this myself, other than, some 401k accounts that I've had over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I agree with what Susan has just said. And if Walter has experience in this,
Mm-hmm.
and, we've had a lot of, we've looked at these, and, I can read the reports, and I can certainly see that the expenses are high with this account that we have currently.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have to try to preserve what we can
Mm-hmm.
for as long as we can. Because
Mm-hmm.
in reality, it's really not 97.5 that we
Right.
have.
Right.
A lot less than that, really.
Reality is about 47.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I have to agree with, yes, your motion so we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. I agree with that motion to move the fund out of the Wells Fargo and into a Vanguard Admiral fund. Is that what we talked about?
Well, I think what I'd like to have that motion be that we move it to Vanguard. And then I'd like to take a roll
then
call on that
decide.
motion right now, if there's no more
Okay.
discussion for moving it. So
All right.
Susan McLeod,
Aye.
Walter Durack,
Aye.
Lisa Rollins,
Aye.
and Amanda Loud is aye. Now, my second motion that I would like to make is that we authorize Walter Durack to make a decision to put the Scribner Trust into the best Wells Fargo fund, the one that he feels is the best.
Vanguard fund.
Vanguard, the best Vanguard. They have just a myriad of them. I would like to subtend this motion, however, by saying that at this point in time, neither one of us, to my knowledge, really has the authority to move any money. I am on the Wells Fargo account, clearly. And I sent an email to Matt Lassard, thank you. I knew it wasn't Lawfer, it was close. Matt Lassard, and I CC'd his assistant, who I've worked with a bit trying to get on accounts. And anyway, I asked what do they need for directive authority? Am I enough right now? What kind of authority do you need for anyone to be able to request funds or move money at the Wells Fargo accounts? Am I enough right now? And I have not heard from them. So I think, I would like to move that Walter has the authority to invest it in the Vanguard fund, of his choosing, because I believe he's going to make the best choice for the Scribner Trust. Having said that, please know that could take a little time because he's going to have to get the authority first, and we're getting the wheels moving, but it's going slowly. So do I have a second on that motion?
I will second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, so
All on you, Walter.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
I will roll call this now. Susan McLeod,
Aye.
Walter Durack,
Aye.
Lisa Rollins,
Aye.
Amanda Loud is also an aye. So therefore, we have moved, seconded, and passed that Walter will look into Vanguard and move this money. In the meantime, Walter, I CC'd you on the email to Matt Lassard so that you know what's going on. And we are trying to get some signatory authority, or maybe I have the authority. If I do, I guess then we should have as a second on this that I can do it. Make the motion that if Walter cannot get the authority in time and I do have it, then say that Amanda Loud can move the money, because I'll do whatever Walter says. Do I have a second on that?
Can we just include it with the other motion?
Sure, include that in the motion that either Walter does it or I do it.
Authorize Walter and Amanda.
And or. Yeah, that works good.
All right, so I'm going to amend that motion so it will say to authorize Walter Durack and Amanda Loud
and or
Amanda Loud,
because I may be the only one to do it. Yeah, if I can do it right now, we'll do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Well, let me.
We'll vote aye on the amended motion, just to make.
Yes, on the amended motion, exactly. Should I do a roll call for the amended motion? Susan McLeod.
Aye.
Walter Durack.
Aye.
Lisa Rollins.
Aye.
And Amanda Loud is also aye. So there we go. Okay, very good. Looking back on the agenda. Where did my agenda go? Here we go. Review of budget, projected near-term expenditures, tree removal, lawn care. We talked a little bit about roofing. So the expenditures, I do want to make a note while I have the thought in my head that I did receive today, or I should say I got the mail today and received from NFP the cancellation confirmation of the secondary insurance policy that was costing $1,100 a year that had the Scribner trustees as beneficiaries. The building contents and building are both insured by the town of Ashland through Primex, and I canceled this. It says that we would have a cancellation was effective May 27th. And it says that we would have a 932, something like that, credit, but I don't believe we're going to see that as a check because it was paid quarterly by the trustees, which also incurred a few fees. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that that has indeed been canceled as we're trying to save money and try to work out some kind of budget for the next couple of years. Before we hit the tree removal, I do want to talk about the life safety. Let me get that up here. Where is the life safety that I saved? Though there's a life safety from Chief Heath today. I've got everything on the screen, but what I want to have on the screen. Where did that go? FPD program for no, that's trustee of the trust funds. That's Walter's oath of office. I don't need that. No, that's Susan's. Here it is. Okay. I'll get this up and I'll get it shared. Chief Heath was able to meet me today. I didn't have much warning, but I didn't need it. It was not a big deal. And we went over and went through, it was time to do the life safety. Here you go. Do you all see it? The main thing that it needs to be that we Scribners need to address is that the emergency lights, you know, if there's a fire or something and the emergency lights, none of them work. So having said that, you know, the good news is that I do have the name of someone to contact about this. United Safety Service. They're the ones who do the fire extinguishers. Speaking of which, the fire extinguishers had been checked, you know, and they had the tags, but we Scribners must check them monthly. And there's a tag to date. So I went through while we were there and I looked at all of them and made sure that the arrow was in the green and everything looked good. And that is a Scribner job. That is not a job for anyone who is in the building, who's using the building. In other words, it's not the library's job. You know, as managers of the building, that's our job. And so I took care of it today on the 8th, and I have no problem going in about the 8th of every month and doing this, you know, not a big deal. But it does say that none of the emergency lights work. So I have a person to talk to who can also do the smoke alarm servicing. The smoke alarms need to be serviced annually. I don't know that they ever have been. I'm not saying that they have not. I'm just saying I don't know if they ever have been. And this same company will do that as well as the exit lights. So I would like to put a motion that I have the authority to call United Safety Service and get this stuff fixed.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, read the second. Okay, do we have any discussion? Okay, so all in favor, I will, or yay or nay, I'll do a roll call. Susan McLeod.
Aye.
Walter Durack.
Aye.
Lisa Rollins.
Aye.
And Amanda Loud says aye. So I will call United Safety Service and look into this. Now going down, there's some stuff that's highlighted. For example, and it seems slightly moot because the library isn't open right now, but will be, let's all hope, pretty soon. The food pantry that the small food pantry that is established in the library, we just need to be careful. There is an exit light above that, and there was a bag or something in the way. And so Chief Heath noted that and moved it aside. You just have to be careful about that. The coat rack we moved. It was in front of a fire extinguisher. The fire extinguishers, yeah, this is the no monthly inspection. I've started that, so we're going to be okay. We've taken care of this, you know, the no record there. Fire alarm. I was unable to confirm annual inspection and Stanley fire system. Again, that's something I can call. Perhaps we ought to amend this motion I made to say something like Amanda has the authority to get everything fixed or something like that. Because I can call Stanley and find out. Yes, Lisa.
Is Stanley, now Stanley does the fire alarm, but you had mentioned smoke alarm. Is that something different that I'm
Yeah,
looking at?
now there are
Okay.
apparently, yes, there are, that is different.
Okay,
We think the Chief Heath looking at it said that they needed to be serviced because they can get dusty and bugs in them and
right.
and so that's
Okay.
something that he said United Safety Service could do, which is the company that does the fire extinguishers.
Okay,
So
and then the fire alarm is a separate thing with Stanley then?
that's a different company, I believe, and that's something
Great.
I guess I'm going to find out when I make my phone
Okay.
calls.
All right,
And
we're
we'll
all
find out
learning
what's
as we
going on.
go here.
We're learning as we go. But anyway, I will call them and try to make sure that what's going on with that, just to be sure we're up to date with that. Okay. Means of egress readily visible, box of books partially obstructed egress bath to rear door. Because see, this is by, I guess for lack of a better term, the kitchen. I wouldn't really call it a kitchen, but we all know what I'm talking about. There was a box of books right outside it, which was in what would be, I guess, a hall path along that table. And so you just need to watch that. I'm in complete sympathy with the library. You are on top of yourselves, to put it mildly, and trying to do the best we can. But at any rate, so just watch that. Other than that, I don't think that there was any other problems to report. I did ask, and this is going back to our May 25th meeting, I did ask Chief Heath about the putting the sprinkler on the stairs to be able to use what is, for lack of a better term, the Scribner room upstairs. And he said that he would still allow the use of the room if we install that sprinkler system. And he also, I do believe, if I remember correctly, that this United Safety Service would be a great place to begin with that and getting a price for that as well. And he said any plumber, could install it, that it wasn't a very involved system. So, as far as sprinklers, it's not saying that if plumbers couldn't install an involved one, they can, but that this particular, what he was looking for would be on residential water and would not be a difficult, thing to do. So I myself have no problem with looking into that. So I guess I'm putting a motion now before the Scribner board to look in and get a quote. The quote that the library has is old. I think we need something new, and I'd be willing to call, when I call United Safety Service, to ask about that as well. Do I have a second on this motion?
Yes, I will second that.
Do we have any discussion?
I think when this came up before, we discussed whether or not it was integral for the use of the building or the integrity of the building, which then distinguishes who might be more the better party to pay for it.
Right. I think at this point, I would just like to get
a quote. Yeah.
I just want to get a quote and find out what it's going to cost. I think as this meeting progresses tonight, we need to begin to, Susan is right, decide, who's going to pay for what. And then I think as, we move forward, we need to decide where we're headed. As I said, we need that, and on the agenda tonight, it says, Scribner trustees begin, drafting the Scribner trustees proposal. But I would like to have a quote on how much that costs, as we can begin to decide whether or not that's something that we want to do. The way the Chief Heath described it to me, it's not a very involved thing at all. And speaking more about the Scribner room, with Chief Heath, the door at the top of the stairs is a fire rated door. And I told Chief Heath, do doors need to come off? Because when you go upstairs, oh my gosh, everybody go to the left. Now we're going to shut the door. Everybody go to the right. Every meeting I was in last year, I thought, I'm going to die. If there's a fire, I'm going to die. And it was very unsettling, especially when we all had to come out and go and move and then shut the door and everybody move this way. It was just, oh my word. But he said that the door is fire rated. At this point in time, I do have the Scribner room locked. I will continue to keep it locked until we trustees of the trust fund are able to move all of the records to town hall and all the CRF materials. Once we get those moved, and it's up high on our list, but we have a very long list. Once those materials are moved, I mean, we're not going to lock the door. I don't see a reason to have it locked. Having said that, no meetings can occur that have, I think, more than about 5 or 6 or 7 people. Chief Heath said that the Scribners could not meet there if the public was present. That was the way he put it. So I don't see a problem with the library using that room during the library hours. I think you need to be very careful of the public load in that room, particularly when and until or if, we have a system on the stairs, a sprinkler system on the stairs.
I believe that in the past, many years ago, we have had some meetings up there, book discussion groups and the such.
I think until
And it's probably between 8 and 12 people.
Well, I think until the fire safety thing is
Right.
addressed, and we are trying to address this fire safety, I'm going to call, United Safety Service probably. I'm not going to have a chance to do this probably until Friday because I'm going to be spending all day Wednesday and Thursday in a webinar. And tomorrow's busy. But anyway, it's on my to-do list, and we're going to try to get a quote and move forward on that. So just as the library begins to reopen, do know that room is locked now, not because any personal thing we have against you. It's just we've got to get those records moved first before you all can get in there. Good. I think that's, I'm trying to think, we need a carbon monoxide alarm for the upstairs. Those are easy. I bought one myself at Ashland Lumber and put it in the top of my basement. Not a problem. I have no problem doing that. We can fix that. So other than that, I think that's all that, I'm trying to look at my notes from last time, but we wanted to talk to Chief Heath about it, and I did. And I think, does anyone have any other questions about the building? Yes, Lisa.
So is there a limit on the number of people that will be allowed to use the upstairs of the building?
Maybe.
Use that room at any one time?
I'm making an assumption, and I need to ask Chief Heath about this, and I will write this down to get some kind of exact answer. I think until we have some kind of egress in place, egress system in place, either sprinklers. Another thing he suggested is we could build an outside egress, stairway. But until I think there is a second egress way, it's still going to go up and down the stairs, but yes, the answer to that is yes, it's going to have to be very limited use. But having said that, I'm going to call him Friday and get a quote, and we're going to try to move forward. So,
okay.
And the library isn't open to the public right now anyway. Maybe by the time the library is open to the public, we'll have a really good plan in place, and you'll see what's, an end in sight kind of idea.
Well, even this is the staging in of opening to public is still going to have a lot of those physical distancing in place, and you can't sit 6 feet apart in one of those rooms upstairs and get too many people in there.
That's a very
So
good.
That's right.
That might go on for quite some time. So that gives us lead time to at least come up with some plans and options for how to deal with it.
Good point. Next on the list is the tree removal. Susan, take it away.
Well, I haven't really gotten anything in writing from either Donovan or Chippers. I did have a consultation with Mark Liebert of Tree Solutions. His assessment of the tree is it's not in imminent danger of falling. Unlike the other one that did split, the way the trunks are formed in this particular tree, it's way less likelihood that any part of it would split off and fall. And it's not that it's necessarily rotting from the inside. Its major problem is its roots. He said it doesn't look like it necessarily has a disease or an insect infestation of any sort, but the fact that it's only 50% leafed out shows that it has compromised roots, which, of course, he said was preventable, but it's very unlikely to be curable. So had this tree been carefully tended over the years, it wouldn't have this problem now. But his estimate of taking it down, again, with a crew of 4 and the crane, was $24.50.
That didn't surprise me. You were saying all that and you said 4 men in a crane. I said it's over 2,000. I've taken down.
Again, the large tree, the sugar maple that was taken out of Memorial Park, we got a good deal from shippers. They did it for $19.50. But this one also, if you look at it, because I carefully took pictures to show its relationship to all the wires that come in at that corner, the fact that you have traffic control of an intersection of 3 roads coming together, the proximity to the building itself, although they can't fell it, they have to start from the top, take pieces of it off and use a crane, which also entails a road, traffic control at some point to be able to deal with this, which we didn't have to deal with in Memorial Park. That was rather a discreet off the road takedown.
Right. Now one thing, when you went and you've gotten one of 3 estimates, but I think we can probably all assume that this is 2,400 and the other one, we got a good deal with 1950. So we're talking somewhere around 2,000, 2,100, something like that to take care of the tree. One thing we had talked about earlier was when we got the estimates was to see if we could go again before the town and say, hey, okay, we've gotten these estimates. We only have so much money in this trust. We are trying to figure out how to sunset this and move this forward. Is this something that the town could do? Do we want to try to go before the town and see if the town will pay to, or use the, town?
In the end, the one that did fall, the DPW did deal with. Now, there's a little bit of back and forth about that as to who was authorized to say what, when.
Exactly.
And the other thing, I know that the times have changed now also, but in 2013, it was the electric department with their crane that took all the dead larches out along the fence between the pizza place and Memorial Park.
Oh, okay.
And they again did a job without damaging anything or anybody.
Right.
So it's a matter of equipment, personnel, and
apparently the town does have the equipment and the personnel, to be able to do this. This is going.
Well, I wouldn't say DPW has the expertise to be in a harness, 40 feet up with a working chainsaw.
That's a very good point.
If I can speak,
yes,
if I'm allowed to.
Oh, sure, please, Alice.
That the electric company takes down trees if they're endangering wires. I mean, I think that's part of what they do.
Right.
Sometimes, whether you like it or not, they take down trees on your properties.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good point. So I think what I would like to put a motion now before the board, and that is that we Scribners go before the Board of Selectmen at their, looking at a calendar here, so 8, 15, 20, 22, 29th. Do they have a meeting on the 29th? No, they don't. They're going to have their next meeting is this coming Monday. I think that I don't know if we could get on the agenda for this Monday. Do you think?
Probably not.
Probably not. But we could get on.
Amanda.
Yes.
Agenda items to the town manager by noon on Friday.
Oh, but right for the meeting, so we have time to get on the agenda.
Yes, whether you whether you can be fit. I don't know what's coming up next Monday,
see.
but
If
you
we'll
make
fit.
your request with all
Well,
the information.
Okay, so my motion then before the board is that I make a request that we Scribners go before the Board of Selectmen. I can make that request tomorrow morning, and we would be before them at the June 15th meeting to discuss tree removal and exterior lawn, I guess lawns are exterior, lawn maintenance of the Scribner building. And if we can't get on the 15th, then I'll be on there to get on the, it would be the July 6th meeting. So do I have a second to that proposal or motion?
Yes, I will second.
Okay. So do we have any discussion about that?
Now, I knew that it was going to be very pricey to get the experts, but like everything else, especially with the sugar maple in the park, it was that we had at least 3 or 4 professionally trained arborists do an assessment of the tree. So that brings the dialogue to, well, okay, this is, if it has to come down, then the question becomes who can do it, and hopefully for less than like $2,100 or $2,500.
Yeah. So I will send that into Charlie, and I will write up. I know that, and I don't blame Eli at all. He would like to have some paperwork ahead of time and not just have your name on the agenda to come before them, but to have an idea of what it is that you want to talk about. So I'll write that all up and send that off to Charlie and see if we can't, and Eli. Yes. Kathleen.
FYI, the electric company, the AED, has a new piece of equipment. They also have certified journeyman linesmen now. And I think it's worthwhile to explore them working in partnership with DPW, either with traffic control. There will be more hands available. And my understanding is that the DPW foreman is a certified sawyer. At least that's what he told me.
Good.
Through the fire department. So I think we have a lot more personnel that
Good.
that could maybe be helpful in some way, shape, or form.
Well, good. Well, I will again put that proposal. It'll be a short proposal to talk about the taking over some of this as we begin to figure out where we're going. And here we go. Consideration of investments and possible future plans. We have done that already in voting for Walter to invest it at Vanguard. We have reviewed the physical condition of the Scribner building, both with the life safety as well as the building inspection report that we looked at the May 25th meeting. As I said back on May 25th, and as I've talked to all of the Scribners individually, what I would like the Scribner, and there's been agreement, and this is a time to say, I don't agree. Believe me, you're not going to hurt my feelings. As I always say, I teach middle school. You cannot hurt my feelings, which is so true. As we move forward, we all understand that the trust has a finite amount of money. As Lisa pointed out, it's really not 97.5. We're really about 47.5 because we can't, or 57.5 because we can't spend 40,500, at least according to the way the will stands and the trust is understood today. And I also said that back at the May 25th meeting that I would like us Scribners to put together a proposal on what we're going to do. There's a lot of maintenance that this building needs. This building is in very poor condition, and I think that's a generous term. And it needs a lot of work. The maintenance has not been done well over the years, or has not been done. And we missed roofing. That reminded me of roofing. speaking of maintenance, we do need to fix the front part of the roof. We have a bad leak, which all of you have seen because you've all gone through the library and seen the leak at the top by the attic, and also around the chimney upstairs. And you can just stand on the street and look at the front and go, wow, that part of the roof does not look good. So I would like us to get some roofing estimates on that before we move forward with anything. Does anyone good at roofing estimates? I put a roof on my house, but I put a metal roof on my house. But does anyone, yes, Kathleen?
It'd probably be helpful if maybe you have a conversation with the town manager that to help you in a process like this, to put things out to bid.
Okay.
Because the town does have a money limit where you must put it out to bid, and he could provide the template of paperwork.
He could provide people,
No, he could provide you the paperwork or the verbiage in order to seek estimates.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I guess then I'm going to make a
And now I'm going to opine.
Yes.
Every time that everybody involved, including the select board, work together and try to find common solutions for this town-owned building.
Oh, I agree with that. I think that's going before them, like I said, on the 15th to talk about the tree, as well as the lawn maintenance is a beginning in that direction. And I guess I have a motion now that, do I even need your authority to go to Charlie to get the paperwork on how to get?
Amanda, that would probably be by consensus.
Okay.
You're just getting a general, you're having everybody say, sure, Amanda.
Okay.
Explore this option. You don't necessarily have to do it by, you're just getting information. You're not spending funds or enacting policy. You could do that by a consensus.
Okay, so I guess
that's my opinion.
I think I'm gonna, your statutes very well, so I'm going to go with that. Then I'm going to go to Charlie and I'll get the paperwork I need to get estimates for this. And in addition to that, I will bring this matter up when I get before the Board of Selectmen, be it at the 15th of June or if it's the July 5th meeting, one of the 6th meeting, whatever that Monday is. I will bring that up also, but hopefully if I can't appear before the Board of Selectmen until July, I will pursue some estimates and try to have some kind of dollar figure with me if I'm there at a later date. Does that sound like a good thing for everybody? And then we'll know where we're going with this. Part of that roof is going to have to be fixed, and we're going to need to address that sooner than later because I think it will affect the integrity of the building. Now, having said that, I'm finally at the end of the agenda, which talks about the Scribner Trustees proposal, which is what I was talking about when I suddenly remembered the roof. Writing notes to myself. As I said, what I think that we all, and I completely agree with Kathleen, I think we all agree with each other that we're going to need to be in discussion, in communication with both the library trustees, the Board of Selectmen, because the town owns the building, as we move forward. Now, one thing that came up at our May 25th meeting was the limitations, or I should say the concerns that Scribners have versus the concerns that library trustees have. And this is not an adversarial relationship, and I cannot stress that enough. All of us sitting here, as I'm looking out, we all have a library card. I have an Ashland library card. We all have library cards. All of us use the Ashland library to some degree, and that's not the issue. But when you're a Scribner trustee, the building is the issue. And ultimately, what happens in that building, if it's a daycare, if it is a place where, I don't know, people meet and have lunch, I don't care what happens in the building, I care about the building itself. And when we were talking in the May 25th meeting, which I thought was a wonderful meeting and very productive between the library trustees as well as the Scribner trustees, what became apparent rather quickly was issues of programming. And I even said, I think if you go back and listen to the meeting, I even said point blank, I don't care about programming. I don't care, you know, what the library needs the building to do. I care that the roof leaks. I care that there's a hole in the wall. I care this, that, and the other, because my concerns as a Scribner are very different. And then after the meeting, I began to reflect, and I'm speaking now as Amanda Loud. I'm not speaking for the Scribner board. I'm speaking as Amanda Loud, and I'm getting ready to throw out a motion. I began to, and I reflected on this for a long time, not just after that meeting. Amanda Loud would like to get rid of the Scribner trustees. Amanda Loud would like to have a warrant article go before the town in March of 2021 that dissolves the Scribner trustees. In my opinion, and I'm speaking only for myself, in my opinion, the Scribner trustees have not been a positive element. And in my opinion, the people who need to be figuring out what to do with the building are the people who are using the building. Because as a Scribner, my concerns are very different, and they shouldn't be. It should be people that know what the building is being used for, and it has this, the Superior Court of New Hampshire has proclaimed that it can be and is the town library. So having said that, my understanding of how to move forward on this is I would like to CPRE the Emma Scribner Trust. Now, what that means, let me pull up for you on a screen share what CPRE is. So hold on just a minute. This is a legal term. And to answer everyone's questions, yes, we're going to have to get a lawyer. Yes, it's going to cost some money. But I think it's going to be some money well spent. So CPRE, this is the definition. It's spelled C-Y, and then the second word is P-R-E-S. Here it is down in the document. If it becomes unlawful, impossible, and this is, I think, our key word here for us, impracticable, to carry out the purpose of a designated charitable trust, or becomes wasteful to apply all the property to the designated purpose, the trust will not fail, but instead the court will direct the application of the property or a portion of the property to a charitable purpose that reasonably approximates the designated purpose. The CPRE doctrine means as near as possible. Practically, this means that the court rewrites the charitable gift or trust so that it is no longer impossible or impracticable to carry out. Now, my understanding of kind of order of operations, and I'm only speaking for myself, and so this is something that we Scribners can discuss, you know, once I shut my mouth, which will be soon. My understanding of the order of operations on a CPRE is that the first thing that has to happen is that the town voted in and accepted Emma Scribner's will in 1936, 37. It can turn it down. You know, it can vote by warrant article to abolish the Scribner trustees. Now, that doesn't mean that the Scribner trustees are gone, because Emma Scribner's will does indeed state that there should be the trustees of the trust fund with 2 additional appointed.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't say that in the will?
No, it wasn't the will. It was the resolution on the floor for the warrant article to accept the property in 1937.
But
it was the voters. It was the voters who set that up, and then the selectmen then appointed the 2 other citizens at large Scribner trustees to join the ex officio trustees of the trust funds. Now, if she had never stated anything about any trustees, the trustees of the trust funds still, by the way the state operates, would still be in charge of the financial end of handling the trust.
Okay. But they're just going to be
the handling of the property was a resolution by the voters of this town when they accepted the property. Her will did not specify how many trustees or exactly what their duties would entail. Because I have both, I have a copy of each of them and right here.
I got the will up right here. Hold on. I got the will up right here. Here we go. Oh, land I own on Pleasant Street to forever hold and occupy, known as Scribner, in good condition. Oh. It is my request that the town of Ashland, the state of New Hampshire, shall elect or appoint trustees to have charge and care for the grounds and to invest the funds. Oh.
Amanda, Susan's correct.
Yes. Yes.
The trustees of the trust fund would always have purview over the money.
Right, the money.
It's the charitable trust.
Right.
This is where, when you had town meeting, that you
Yeah.
could amend on the floor, and it was, somebody put the motion forward. Yes, we'll accept the building if, and they added the extra oversight of 2 more appointed trustees.
Okay.
And majority vote accepted that. So this
Okay.
has been, this is what happens when people don't go back to the original document and then see what happened at town meeting when it was accepted.
Yeah.
It was the same issue with the Whipple House, that people kind of mixed the things together, and it became very confusing in a lot of people's minds, and they said, no, that's what, it was easy to conflate the two together. But the document on the screen is what Emma wished. The town said, yes, thank you very much. But we also want more oversight. And somebody made the motion, it was accepted and voted on. And that's how we got the appointed at-large Scribner trustees.
So,
The same thing happened with Memorial Park. When the town accepted the park from the committee of people who created it as basically a separate entity that wasn't a town entity until they presented the park to the town, and the town in 1999 and then revised in 2000 the role of the trustees for that park. So they are not statutory. They were defined by what, again, the voters wanted for the oversight of the property itself. But that doesn't, again, the level of trustee is not the deciding factor. Certainly Memorial Park, we maintain the park and we make a lot of the decisions for the actual on the ground stuff, but we still have to go to the Board of Selectmen as the owners of that property when we want to do something that needs at least a run by to the, with the selectmen.
mhm.
Susan is absolutely correct. This is the fun of reading old documents, and this is the benefit of documentation.
Right.
Here it is. Here it is.
So,
You
so,
can't, this is what she,
right.
what am I trying to say? This
That's what her wish
is
is.
this is her will. This is what her
Right.
wish was. This is
Yeah.
how she wished to bequeath her property.
So
And that was carried out was a decision of the voters.
voters, the voters put
So
them in,
since the voters,
take them
since the
out.
voters created in a warrant article the actual Scribners,
They
the
can take 'em out
voters
of the
can
warrant.
take them away again.
Right.
In a warrant article. So as we put together, and I said that from the beginning, we need to lay the first card. We are the managers of the building. And again, that is the problem, is that we are the managers of a building, which doesn't mean that we really care what's going on inside it, and that I think that the two need to be joined together and not disassociated. And I know that, is there, and maybe Sarah would know this actually, is there another library in the state of New Hampshire where the library trustees do not have authority over the building?
No, in every other city and town, the library trustees have the authority over the building.
Now, and I'd like to
That
say,
is state law.
And in most all, I'm sure there's a couple of exceptions, but most all of the libraries are owned by the town. That is normative. There are exceptions, but it is normative. So the town owns the Scribner building, whoop-de-doo, you know, the town owns Holderness Library. The town owns, you know, Meredith Library. It's just normative. So anyway, as we go forward, we as Scribners, as I said, we need to be able to lay the first card in this discussion. And I want, as my idea is that we say, number one, warrant article in March and the Scribners dissolve. I would like to hand over as much of the trust as possible. And I think that we do need to have it legally researched to see if we can indeed spend the principal. That will be a legal fee. We'll have to go and have that verified. I'd like you to be able to go down to zero. You know, I want to hand over to, if the warrant article passes in March, this is my own machinations. If it all passes in March, my idea would be to hand over to the library trustees a trust that has, you know, down to a zero value in it. You know, so instead of handing over maybe 20,000, you're actually going to have 60,000. Now, having said that, that completely shapes everything I look at on maintenance, because, yeah, we got a lot of big problems. And right now, I don't want the Scribners, Amanda Lau doesn't want the Scribners tackling the big problems, because I think what needs to happen is that the library trustees need to get themselves an architect. And you need to get somebody in there that looks at it and says, well, what can we do? And I'm telling you right now, I know you all have a CRF for about $100,000. And I would like to have that be about 150,000 by the time the Scribners are dissolved and we walk away. Because we will hand you about 50,000 is my point. I think you all need to get an architect in there and say, what can we do for 150,000? And a lot of it is going to be fixing sagging floors and problems that are structural. However, an architect will look at that and move the stairs, you know, and say, well, let's put the stairs over here and let's turn the young adult area into stacks, and let's make where the stacks are now, let's make that the meeting room. You know, and then, oh, we've got an upstairs. Well, we can open up the upstairs, and maybe we have a large atrium here and we really make it kind of a half story, and we can have it all open with a railing. I don't know. But my point is, you know, an architect will look at that and not be contained by what he or she sees. We'll see square footage, and there's square footage in that building, and we'll see ways to move it around. And I think the people that need to make the decisions on what happens to it are not the Scribner trustees. That's what Amanda Loud thinks. Anybody want to talk about it now?
Amanda,
Yes.
you just put out a whole lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. I have had a long time to think about this.
Okay. This town operates in baby steps.
I know.
So you have to break this down incrementally. One of the biggest proponents, first of all, you've got to have the library trustees. This is just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the Board of Selectmen, just for the record. I'm speaking as a friend of the library and a library patron. The library trustees, this is a whole new world for you. You need to make a commitment to this building. Once you make this commitment, I sense you probably will have quite a bit of community support. And that can be an excellent way to garner funds, more participation. That being said, a lot of this will have to be a legal process.
Yes.
Which moves very
slowly.
And you're going to have to partner. I shouldn't say you should partner with the BOS to try to expedite this and streamline it. Some of the legal work is done. as part of their monthly retainer. This would not.
Well, that's why I said, we
So
need
you
to
would
lay
have-
the first
yeah.
card. We need to
Yeah.
lay the first card. So what,
Right.
and I'm just pointing out what Amanda Loud thinks need to happen. If Amanda Loud wrote the first card, that's what it would say. It would say warrant article in March, dissolve Scribner, hand it all over to the library trustees, go for it. And I'm saying it 9 months before the election because, library trustees, if you like this idea, your work is cut out for you.
The library trustees, they've been, the legislative body, the voters have been given to your capital reserve fund. That's extremely positive.
Yes.
Another reminder, budget process will be starting up probably August, September. So you have a very ambitious program in front of you. You might not get everything done this go around, but at least you'll have the baseline. You'll have the start of it.
I think if we have the legal stuff done in the next year, that's going to be one thing. And we have had architects look at the building. $100,000 is again a drop in the bucket.
It will not put an addition on that building.
Well, I don't even think it will fix all the things that need to be fixed.
Well, let's try to be positive.
Yeah.
Let's start off being positive. And as you make your list and as you find more information, you're going to have to change your list. But I think this is what I was trying to express before. You've never had almost the freedom to be able to have the ability to do this. And
Yes.
I think once you start, I'm just remembering the last Friends of the Library meeting we had just before we had to shut down. We had 4 new members. Lisa Sarah, I don't believe you attended that, but Lisa took the minutes. We had 4 new people come and they were extremely enthusiastic about the library. Yes, they were very disappointed in that the vote didn't reflect buying the old school. But if we could still harness that enthusiasm for the library, that where it is now, I can't. This is all my feelings, but I think everybody might be surprised that we'd have quite a few people coming forward and offering to help in some way, shape, or form, even if it takes 5 years to get this done. To put it out there that 100,000 is not going to do anything.
Well, and I think
you got to start out on a positive note and just keep moving forward.
and keep in mind, this is again my thoughts. But hopefully you're going to have more like 150,000. Another 50% more, because we have the Scribner Trust. It's about 97.5. We have things that we need. And I'm hesitant, like I said, because I think we shouldn't be there shouldn't be Scribner trustees. So I'm very reluctant to put money towards some kind of infrastructure that might be torn out because no, we're going to move the stairs and move it over here. So that's why I'm kind of like, nah, should we spend the money to put the sprinkler head thing in? Because what if it's all torn? But from talking to Chief Heath, it seems like and then kind of looking at the overall use of the building and weighing things, I think it might be worth the $2,000 to put it in because I think it could be moved. But I'm not going to be going in and fixing things that's like structural and stuff because you may be tearing that out and redoing it. And I think that the building honestly is in such poor condition that we need to stop fixing this and fixing that and fixing this and have a great plan that utilizes the building as best as possible for the programming of the building. And that's where the library trustees come in. Programming of the building. A lot of stuff needs to be fixed. Let's fix it right. Yes, Susan.
Yeah, I think a lot of the thoughts have to be whether it's the legal, before you go to legal to start asking them questions, you have to know what your end goal is. So you work for the end goal that you want to see, instead of having dealt with legal enough to know you only get the answers you need if you know what questions to ask, and if you have in mind which direction you're going in. And as far as the building itself too, it's like, the question is also, what is a library going to look like in another 15 years? I've been reading a lot about the future of libraries. And if you look at all the faces on this screen right now, there's no millennials here.
Oh, Walter.
Hey, wait a second. Come on.
He's our token.
I just barely qualify, but I qualify.
Yeah, you're on the older end of the spectrum there.
But I will say that I am too young to be a baby boomer. I missed it by 2 years.
You're still an Xer. Just hear me. You know, what people's expectations are of what they're getting out of their libraries is more and more, you know, the whole meme about there won't be any more physical books because nobody wants to read them anymore, it has proved not to be true either. But there are other incarnations that the expectations from what a library provides for the general community is changing. And how does this building, or can this building accommodate what a library has to look like in another 5, 10, 15 years, if anybody's going to put any money into it?
That's
and
right.
If not, then the library trustees have to find a way to say that we have to move on and find some place that will be sufficient for us.
That's
and then
right.
the other question for the town and for the selectmen are, okay, well, we own this building. What is next for this building? And if we just go with the will, we really don't need another park. It was nice of her to think of in 1937, 36, but it's not really a relevant way of going anymore, which again, the Cypre, when you say that the mission is no longer viable, so you have to challenge the will as to whatever its best intentions were. It's kind of been there for 80 years. And of those 80 years that the building has been owned by the town, 70 plus of them has been the library. So if you're thinking of the future, throw open as wide a view as possible to think down the road, and again, throw it into the mix that once again, this town has all these different properties that have expiring uses, and what are we going to do with them? The Whipple House, the library, even the Booster Club is sort of outdated and not truly sufficient to support what it might have to support into the future if it's going to remain a community center. So
Yeah, I would like to know
we're in that mix.
what the building inspector, he took a very, very thorough look at the building. And I didn't see any like text of his recommendations. He just,
There was a misunderstanding. Apparently, there was a misunderstanding, and the building inspector thought that she was not supposed to write recommendations, and that was an error. Now, having said that, I can tell you that an architect knows the building codes, and an architect could, and I keep going back to, I think you need to get yourselves an architect.
you have one.
Okay, there you go. So your architect will be able to look at that building inspection. It is good in the sense that it does list a lot of things, and the architect will be able to tell you what does and does not, from a code violation standpoint, need to be fixed, and the cost. And that is actually, Alice, probably a really good place to start with an architect, is look at this building inspection that we've got. Now, let me also tell you that we're probably going to have, fingers crossed, about $150,000. What can we fix? What can we not fix? And while you're looking at fixing the building, don't think that you got to keep it the way it is. You know, can we move stairs? Can we fix all of this stuff? Can we do like an HGTV show, you know, where they bring in the sledgehammers, and they start moving everything around and everything, you know, that I love to watch that. I love to watch that on TV. And they buy the, you know, but they buy the houses that look like the Scribner building. And then it's like really nice. And they pour like $150,000 into it. Now, granted, they're not putting a library in there. And I understand that there is the engineering of the weight of the books and everything. All you have to do is go into the room and see the floor going down to understand that. So I understand there's different things involved. However, you're not going to have a $60,000 kitchen. You know, I mean, there's going to be what you would put in a big upgrade on a house, you know, is what I'm saying. So there's going to be some give and take on that. And having said that, you know, I think, you know, I think it is an opportunity to embrace the building and make it's not going to be a 5,000 square foot library, but it could be a usable space, and it could be a safe space, and it could be a clean space, and it could be an aesthetically pleasing space. And it could take an addition in another 10 years, you know, just thinking how it could go. I can remember, and Sarah remembers this, the Holderness Library, circa 1998. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. You know, and that was not a pretty scene at all. And slowly but surely, you know, we started by, I was a library trustee at the time. We started by sealing the basement, and then we gained the basement. And then we started, you know, we took down the drop ceiling, you know, and fixed the way it was. And it just slowly kind of began to, everybody got excited about the building in town, and we were able to move forward. So
back to the building inspector. Is the building inspector now going to write a report or no?
no, we don't have a building inspector anymore for the town of Ashland.
So the woman who did the work for the library,
The building inspector.
there was a misunderstanding. Is that going to get corrected or no?
No, she's no longer employed by the town to correct it.
Okay.
But again, an architect can look at this building report.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
and
sure
can
Ward
say,
would be
this
very
is
excited
the
to see.
remediation that needs to happen, you know, and this is the cost. But again, and this is Amanda Loud speaking, don't limit the architect to fixing it just as it stands now. The architect needs to know these are the problems, but what would happen if you gutted it, you know,
Right.
and started
Now,
again?
this will, like you said, this will be up to the library trustees if
Exactly.
and when there are no more Scribner trustees, if that.
Right. But I think you need to, if the town, you know, if things move forward and my far-fetched dream comes true and they do vote by warrant article in March, you know, it's going to be an instant, you know, boom, it's in your lap.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying this now, throwing this out on the table. Everybody, it's the preliminary first card to the first card, so that we can all be thinking about the pros and cons of what would happen with this if it did happen. You know, there's no more Scribners. And having said that, you know, we look at a depleting trust. I'm gonna have roofing estimates. I'm going to have to pay United Safety Service. We're gonna look at the cost of putting in a sprinkler so that we can use the upstairs to a limited degree. You know, it's going to start going down, and I'm hoping that if you can spend it down to zero, it'll be down to, you know, 60, 50,000, but then that will be a total amount that you could have. And that would have, there's going to be legal fees that are going to come from, you know, we'll have to pay to get, you know, things moved over and whatnot. And so do any Scribners have anything to say?
Yeah. Here.
Susan does.
Well, again, the L chip, just for an example, the town hall, the architect looked at the actual present condition and then was asked to reimagine the space, which he did. And that particular assessment grant leads you on to getting grants to actually do the physical work. So don't think necessarily that if this lump of $150,000 isn't some matching money for more that can come in, whether it's an L-chip, whether it's a rural USDA grant that does a lot of things for public facilities. It takes some work. You got to know how to fill out these grant applications. But that's also what you have to put into the mix. There's nothing to lose by spending a lot of time and many copies of putting in grant applications.
And I
And you
think
might fail the first or second time, but you have to keep at it and get better at it.
I think, Sarah, wasn't it a few years ago, many years ago, you got a USDA rural grant for the ramp access from outside?
We were approved to apply. We did start the process, but the Scribner trustees did not want any changes to the building. So
Well, we're not going to stop you. So, you want to start getting stuff like that going. That's fine. Now, I will say that I, as a Scribner, one vote, am against at this point in time spending any of the trust on something like rampway access, because I would like to see a larger programmatic, addressing the needs of the building. And I don't want to spend however many thousands of dollars to stick in something that a larger, more encompassing programmatic plan would rip out. So that's why I, as one vote, take a step back and go, it's needed. I don't think I want to use the money, because I'd like to hand it over to the library trustees so that they have a larger bundle to look at the whole picture with. I have no problem getting a commercial toilet. Toilets are movable. That's not an issue. I don't think it's a problem. I have no problem while the plumber's there fixing the leaky faucet and maybe putting some insulation and stuff like that. And then hooking up, a $2,000 sprinkler. But I do have a real problem with spending a lot of money on something that isn't part of a long-term complete plan that involves the programming of the library. That's just where I stand. So I don't want to seem like, the big bad trustee that won't vote for things. It's because I just don't think that I want to hand it over, and I don't want to be the one in charge of that. Yes, Lisa.
Well, I would just like to say that when I saw that building report, I was not surprised, but I was a little, wow, this is bigger and deeper than I even imagined.
Yeah.
And
Poor condition.
that's kind of where my mind went to, was that how do we get this? How do we get this so that we can combine the forces, I guess, and maybe do away with the Scribner trustees, like you said, and the funds or whatever, however that goes, and then whatever the library has, whatever the voters vote on, and that, so that people would be, I think, more willing to cast a vote for the continuation of adding to the capital reserve for that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's way more above and beyond what we have the funds currently for at this time.
Sure.
And combining the forces and the funds together. And like you said, our concern is the building itself.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to agree, I think, with, getting this on the warrant article to get this moving forward. And I don't know what the steps are for that. I'm not familiar with that. I know there's people on with us right now that are way more familiar with that stuff.
You can help us get that done. We have a few months before we have to deal with that.
Right.
I guess so. Going back to our agenda, begin the
Does Walter have any input on this? Any thoughts as certainly a engineer, building maintenance man and
Sure. So something that I have in mind, and I think would be prudent, and it sounds like maybe there's something that's kind of been in the works with having consulted an architect in the past or architects. And this is something that we use at the college, is a building master plan. So you have the townwide master plan. The townwide master plan is, we'll say, the 100,000-foot view for the town for 5 years, 10 years, whatever the set period is. Having a building master plan is, we'll say, maybe a 50,000-foot view that's specific to the building. And that's going to look at the existing condition physically, existing condition of programming, what works, what doesn't work, define particular areas where there are insufficiencies, where there are deficiencies. The building master plan goes on to say, over the next time period, 5 years, 10 years, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to do to fix the building envelope, to fix, the physical plant of the building, that the structure, the, paint, flooring, plumbing, et cetera, but also look at the programmatic side of it included. And that's something that I think as Scribner trustees, we would be wise to spend a little bit of money to engage an architect, to put together a committee of people who represent both, people who have a vested interest in the building structure, the grounds, as well as the programmatic use, which is presently a library. And those folks kind of steer the architect through development of that building master plan. And that's your fallback document to what you do to actually make that a reality. We know that we don't have the money, and we know that we don't currently have the cash flow to do the entire full gut renovation and modernization and addition for egress, et cetera, to make it everything we want to be. But over the course of 10 years, we might be able to accomplish a mix of programmatic and physical building structure projects to get us where we want through a combination of grants, donations, taking things out of capital reserve, as well as making withdrawals from the trust, et cetera, whatever we need to make that happen. So, maybe that's too long a term. Working on the college, we tend to think long term because we hopefully are going to be there in perpetuity.
And an architect too, you could go to the architect and ask him or her to think about this. If we had $150,000, what could we do? And then you would, after you pull your bottom lip up off the floor because you're all upset, then say, well, what could our next phase be, and what would that cost? And it could, you could get a phased in plan, from an architect as well. But I agree with. I was going to say, I agree with Walter in that, as we move forward toward a March warrant article, that, we're going to have to address things like the roof and, a couple of other areas. But yeah, I would have no problem spending the trust money toward architectural fees and things like that, and in concert with the library trustees. I don't think we should 50-50 or something like that. I think that shows to the town a working relationship. I think it shows that to the BOS as well. And so I like that idea.
Thank you. That's a generous offer.
Well, I think, the thing is that the Scribner Trust, honestly, is ultimately the library's money. Who's in the building? Who's using it? The library is using it. Now, I think that the problem is I think that the library needs to be the ones making the decision on how things are fixed and done, and that hasn't been happening. But I think, we're going to have to work together, toward a resolution on this, hopefully. And if I could be quite honest and very much on the record, as a trustee of the trust funds, the problems I'm seeing, I don't want to deal with the Scribner building. Oh my gosh, I've got enough problems.
We have bigger fish to fry.
Huh?
I said we have bigger fish to fry as trustees.
Way bigger fish to fry, believe it or not. Oh my gosh. So, dissolving this from the to-do list is actually very much a blessing for me.
Right.
And I think it's a blessing for you guys too. It's what you want. I mean, I would want, and I
Sure.
think it's what you all need.
And we appreciate very much all your good advice. We will certainly take it under advisement as we move forward.
Yeah. So having said that, and seeing that our meeting is now going toward a 3-hour mark, 2-hour mark, oh boy. At any rate, Susan did put together, and it did not transfer well to my computer, but I want to briefly show it. I don't want to cut off any discussion that still about what we talked about with warrant article in March and moving things over, but which I thought we kind of discussed. Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing, sheet 1? Okay. This came from Susan. Her program did not move it over to mine. But the point, and we can get, I think for our next meeting in July, we can have a better printout of this so it's easier to see. This was an Excel spread or some kind of spreadsheet that wasn't.
It's an open office.
Okay.
Which open office can open Microsoft, but apparently Microsoft doesn't want to acknowledge open
Yeah,
office.
my Mac didn't like it. But what I like.
Oh, Mac, well, forget that.
Oh yeah. Forget.
But the second version I sent you was a PDF because I originally wanted one that was working, that anybody could fiddle with, which is
Yeah.
why I did the open office. But I sent it to you as a PDF, and even Macs are supposed to be able to open PDFs.
Well, at any rate, Amanda's, it is probably me. What I liked about Susan's, the compilation here, and I'd like next meeting in July, we're going to discuss this much more thoroughly. She has prioritized, or she has categorized the various things that need to be addressed based upon both what the library, you brought forward May 25th, as well as the building inspector's report. And so there's maintenance, repair, interior, and there's all this stuff, floor sinking, oh boy. Anyway, stuff that to be addressed, and exterior items that need to be addressed, and the grounds outside that need to be addressed. And then this all should be together, which is why it's difficult to read, but it talks if it's a safety issue, the cost approximately, the schedule and when it should be done, who should do it. I'm seeing my name there, so I hope I know what that is. But at any rate, this is as you can see, it's 3 sheets that we're seeing vertically. But what I thought was good, and I think for our next meeting, this is where we need to begin, is it does allow us to look at the categories and begin to prioritize things. And moving forward, as let the library trustees have their meeting between now and our July meeting, and everybody kind of absorb this idea, of moving in this direction. And Walter is going to get the funds invested better. We're going to have discussion on, I'll have hopefully by then some bids on the roof, and we'll have an idea of what it costs, because this isn't necessarily going to be optional on getting some of this, the smoke alarm serviced and whatnot, what that ended up costing, as well as a current bid for putting a sprinkler on the stairs. And we'll have a better idea of what some of our very short-term expenses are. And I think that we can look at this list at the July meeting and begin to see, what do we want to start checking off right now? If we want to try to go forward, maybe with a broader building plan or renovation plan. Does that sound like a reasonable way to end this meeting, or does anyone have anything else they want to work on?
Didn't we also have the fuel oil tank underground issue
Oh, I wonder how
that
much
That's-
needs to
that's
be
in
dealt
there.
with?
it's in there.
That's in there? Okay. Could you send that to me, Susan? I
Sure.
don't think I got that.
And can you send that to the library too? That'd be a great list for us to have. Thank you.
I did see the oil tank. Amanda Loud, there it is. It says fuel tank, grounds, fuel tank. Amanda Loud is very hesitant right now to be touching that fuel tank
Mhm.
without
I
a
agree.
long-term comprehensive building plan from an architect kind of thing, because it does need to be addressed, and I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I'm saying that that's going to be a really big project, and it might affect where handicap access ramps are placed, you know, where exterior egress stuff is placed. So I would kind of like that to be.
More than likely, it's going to come out of the ground.
Yeah,
It's not going to be underground anymore.
yeah. And then you got to figure out where you're going to be putting it.
Basement.
and it can't,
They go in the basement.
Well, they go in the basement, but the basement may be extended. I don't know what can and cannot be done for the amount of money, or what's going to have to be done. Something like that costs that much money. I would really like, you know, it's going to be out of the Scribner Trust one way or the other. It's just when it's spent and who's spending it. That's not the issue. And I think that I would like to see that as part of the more comprehensive plan. I'll Band-Aid things with a new toilet. I don't know if I want to, because I just don't want to put a lot of money into something that's going to have to be changed.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, anything else? I think that I'd like to begin our meeting in July with these priorities and kind of moving forward on where we're headed with short-term expenditures. Anything else? Any other business that anybody wants to say? And there being none, I'm not seeing anybody hollering or waving a hand, then I would say that our next meeting will be Monday, July 13th. There
At
is,
5:30 p.m. on Zoom.
I like that. There might be an outside chance that I'll be out of town, but like it matters if it's on Zoom.
I was hoping you were going to say we would have an outside meeting. Like
Oh.
we'd be outdoors having a meeting.
Well, if you want to sit outside in July.
I just might do that.
So I've got this on my calendar. And so until then, you know, let's all, I'll get back. We all have our assignments, and I'll get stuff off to Charlie to be hopefully on the BOS meeting Monday night.
We got a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
We'll do roll call. Susan McLeod.
You technically don't need to vote to adjourn. The
Oh,
chairman
I don't?
can always just call it, but let's adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.
I agree.
We're all in agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Well, you're
All right.
welcome.
Thank
Alice?
you.